Hey folks, this is Simon here. I wanted to give a little bit of a preface to this video. This was taken from a live stream that I did on Twitch in the new Twitch channel for Simon Tech. And it was sort of an impromptu game and it caught me off guard and I didn't really have any preparation for it. So you'll see me floundering about and I joined about 11 moves in, but I don't think it detracts from the actual gameplay. So, with that in mind, please enjoy the video, and yeah, that's it. All right, I was way too slow to be doing this. I hopped in and there are already 11 moves in. All right, so this is a Chandrian tournament. This is the 7x7s. This is fwwwwwibib and Abyss. I have said this is about 25 times. Here we go. Let's look at their first few moves. We see adjacent corners coming out. And then we see immediate center control from fwwwwwib. And we see some defensive moves and offensive moves, mostly defensive from Abyss, and they're doing that sort of mirrored opening that we see often. Abyss does come out with a capstone pretty quick. And again, they do have two capstones in a 7x7 board, so that is important to note. All right, and they keep building, and it's probably going to be fwwwwwib building the first tack threat, just going straight across, and forcing the first capture from Abyss. He does use a capstone for his first capture, which makes it less of a liability because he doesn't have to worry about that flat being recaptured and used against him. So here we go. Now fwwwwwib going more in the other direction. Abyss dropping a second capstone in an interesting spot because it only has one direction to go. I would not have been surprised to see white capture here instead to isolate that capstone. But instead, white drops his own capstone. Black playing across, trying to make some sort of connection at the same time, interrupt white's movement. White captures, makes a hard capstone. Black going across, building that threat himself. White now coming up, trying to make something happen here, but also trying to block off this horizontal threat from black. Black now connecting, making a little bit more of a threat, and now we are caught up here with white building again vertically this time. So let's look now that we've caught up. Let's take a look here. We have fwwwwwib trying to go for this sort of threat here. And it is important to note that fwwwwwib does still have one capstone left that he has not played, which is huge, huge. Okay, so we do see black coming down with the capstone. Now, this is an important move because this move not only sort of moves it forward towards more of a vertical threat for black, but also threatens basically everything that white has built so far. This horizontal threat relies on, and the vertical threat rely both on this flat particular. So this one does need to remain in play. Now, one way to make that remain in play is to cover it with this capstone, throw it across. I don't think that would be a very good play. Instead, white is going to be building up, sort of making more offensive moves, forcing black to respond. Now, while I do really like white's position here, I also like black's. Black has two capstones in play that are both relevant. They're both part of the game here. This one, while it looks like it's not doing much, it is holding at bay this horizontal threat. And at the same time, it's also giving an avenue for more of a vertical threat in this line, and keeping white from really doing anything over here. And so white is probably waiting for black to make a capture here. If black makes some sort of capture, then white can fill in with a capstone, which would be huge, able to get that second capstone into play in a relevant position. And that's what you really want to do with these sevens tournaments. Now, I still have yet to play Abyss in this sevens tournament, and he's my final opponent. And I was thinking about maybe forfeiting because I just don't have any time anymore. And I don't even know why I'm streaming this because I have no time to be doing this, but we're doing it anyway. So this is also me testing out Twitch and streaming in general. So we'll see how this works out. So I have said so many, many times. We are going to be seeing Abyss taking his time here. If we look at the relative times on the clock, we have 15 minutes for fwww and only 9 for Abyss. Now, Abyss does historically take a lot of time for his turns in these TAC tournament games, but when it comes down to the wire and he only has a minute left, he plays on that increment very, very well, and he's able to do pretty incredible things with just a minute to go. And so he's able to think very quickly at the same time, but he does take a lot of time on his mid-game moves. And so we are seeing here a flat being played at f3, sort of continuing this horizontal threat. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so we see white drop a capstone here. I don't know if I agree with that positioning, but I do like it. I would have liked to see him wait for a capture to then drop the capstone, but I do like this. So this capstone is going to come up here and basically disrupt this whole horizontal road threat, because this is the linchpin to everything. Abyss is probably trying to think of a way that he can move this and isolate this capstone while still retain his momentum in the game. My only thought with that is to capture his own flat, which is very counterintuitive, and then wait for maybe a recapture and toss the capstone down to make that sort of stand out there. And he would have then a stack with a capstone and then 2 black flats underneath, which is a strong stack move. Very counterintuitive, though, to capture your own flat with another flat. It's just not done hardly at all. But we are kind of blazing new trails here with these 7x7 board size. So anything's really possible in this tournament. Now I will take a look at the Discord chat, where there are lots and lots of messages that I've been missing out on about the tournament and about goings on, perhaps in this game even. So we'll see how that works out. All right, so Abyss still taking his time to make a turn here. While I was initially very hesitant about that move, about taking c3 and moving it to b3, I think it would be a really solid move. In the end, I think it would be really good. But, because it would isolate this capstone, and that would just be painful. I could see... Okay, so we see the capstone come down from black. Now, this does not make any sort of immediate attack threat, but white can move this capstone up into place to block off that horizontal threat and be able to use this capstone to block off the vertical threat at the same time by moving over here to b3. But black's capstone coming down not only cuts off this horizontally, but cuts off this vertically. Like I was saying before, this b4 stone was absolutely essential to white's plans. And now they're all sort of gunked up. White, if he's going to want to make some sort of vertical threat, he probably wants to capture here onto c3, unless he wants to preemptively play down here at maybe d2. Maybe he wants to play here at b2 to sort of cut off any sort of vertical threat from black. If black does play here on b5 on the next turn, that is going to be attack threat from black, coming all the way here to g3, all the way across from a5 to g3. So interesting stuff. Okay, so we do see the capstone move up onto c3. And we see the immediate wall come out from black. Really does not want that vertical threat to happen. White saying, okay, fine, I'll start building it over here. And dropping it down at d2. A lot quicker play from fwwwwibib on these last couple moves. We see the quick responses, and then we saw that quick response from Abyss placing this wall here, because He considered that capstone moving up as the most likely move and was prepared to make his next move on it. I know a lot of times in chess you have online you have pre-moves that you make to basically make the next move before your opponent has moved because you know what they're going to do. Um, don't have that intact just because there's a lot of different things uh, that go into it with tack, specifically because there are way more potential moves that your opponent can make at any one time in tack. And so the odds of you not seeing a particular move that they were going to do and responding incorrectly are incredibly high. And don't mind me eating tater tots while I watch this match and commentate. That's definitely not what I'm doing right now. All right, so let's take a look. Oh, I didn't even tell anyone that I was streaming. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so we see E2 come down in response to that D2 move. That E2 coming here is going to allow black to make a vertical threat here with this capstone in play and also cut off this vertical threat from white by capturing onto D2. In these high level matches, fwwwwwib and Abyss are both in the top 3 players in the world for tack. No Hat Coder, fwwwwwib, and Abyss are all right up there. It's hard to say who's the best. fwwwwwib did just win the big tournament in sixes. Who knows how their performances are going to stack up in this sevens tournament, but they're both incredibly skilled when it comes to tack. So we do see white play up here at d7, making his connection vertically to this edge of the board. He is 2 moves away from a tack threat, placing here at d1 and then capturing down with his cap or over with this other cap. Lots of possibilities here for fwwwwib, and he is driving the momentum of this game. He does have the basically 1 move advantage in terms of momentum. Black can also make a tack threat in 2 moves by placing here at b5 and then placing here at b2, but white gets there first. So white is the driving force. We do see b2 come out from black, so he's playing sort of for that aggression, seeing if white's going to go ahead and place at d1, and if he does place at d1, maybe this e2 is going to come over and interrupt that. And then he's going to have to rely on something going down over here to block off this vertical threat from black. Tough to say, tough to say. Okay, so we do see d1 come out for white, is making that tack threat. Now, we'll probably see a planned response from black, either moving down, something probably capturing d2, but he may also decide to capture here at d5. Okay, so where is he going to capture? Because it's got to be a capture. He can't stop this any other way. He's got to capture something. Capturing here at d2 or capturing at d5. Those are the only options he has at this point in order to stop this road threat from happening. So, but he does have, for example, capturing here at d2, he has 3 options. He can capture with d3, he can capture with e2, and he can capture with c2. c2 is probably the least effective of those. And then with d5, he only has 1 option, and that's to use c5 to capture over. So let's see what we got here. Okay, so d3 minus. So we do see him capture down, which I think is the best of the capture moves that he could have done here. Now, I don't imagine white's going to throw this capstone down. I don't think that would be a good play in the slightest. It would be easily blocked, and it would basically set up this vertical threat to be interrupted by this capstone or even this capstone, and it would stop all momentum here. So what he's got to do is he's got to find some other way to keep this play relevant, or he's got to start building down here to keep this vertical threat from progressing. Now, while I wait for Abyss to take his time and take his move, we do see 13 minutes on the clock for fwwwwwib and only 4 minutes on the clock for Abyss. Now, I will point out, this Chandrian tournament is playing on very strict time controls, 15-minute base with 20-second increment, which is incredibly short amount of time for a sevens game. Like, that's barely enough time for a sixes game at a competitive level. So a sevens game blows me away. So let's go back here. I missed the move. Okay, so the capstone came across, covered vertically. Then we see black fill in. And then white filling in here. So this is not a attack threat currently. It is important to note, not attack threat, but he's building towards that. And no, I am not. I'm definitely not eating tater tots while I talk to you and commentate this game. Don't know where you would get that idea. And yes, placing at A2 would be attack threat. Good call, Asterisk from the chat. So placing an A2 would give this attack threat because A2 here would connect here and then there. But black decided to cover up at B4, which would eliminate that possibility. So we can no longer make that same move. Looks like black saw that possibility and decided to cut it off. All right, what are we seeing here? What are we seeing? White can do a number of things. I was thinking about, okay, so it looks like he might just be going for a vertical threat here. Or filling in to stop for anything horizontally happening with a capstone smash on this wall, maybe. I was actually really liking the possibility of throwing this wall over and capturing here to make a threat in this direction. I'm not sure how effective that would be because it's a lone flat. And the reason I say that is because the counter move to that would be to drop this down here. And so in order to chase, you would have to throw that down, get this stack, and then it would no longer be a hard cap. But then the response would be a wall here, which could then be smashed by this cap. So it is still a good move, but this option, C5, really kind of throws that that whole plan out because it ruins the Tinue pattern. Okay, so we do see black deciding to go for a road threat here. So this isn't a road threat, but it's very close. It's connecting here at A7 and here at A5, going across. And then it comes here, so he can capture up with D2 to D3 to make this connection here all the way to G3. Or if he wants to instead, he can build here at E1 and then come across with E3 to D3. Either way, he's capturing here D3 to make this a threat. It has not been made yet. And I do like, Asterisk, how in the chat you thought the capstone moving over onto D3 was a good move. Yeah, I like that move a lot, but C5 does sort of ruin it. We do see the response here from white playing at B4, which doesn't really do anything to stop this threat. The The move that would stop it is the next move, I guess, would be moving b4 up to b5. Hmm. But look at the clock. We got 2 minutes left for Abyss. Like I said, Abyss does take his time when he makes these moves. He takes plenty of time, but he is very, very good. Okay, so we don't see an immediate attack threat from Abyss, even though he could have made one. We instead see him fortifying his position here by placing at b6. So basically what that does, oh hey, cool, that's neat. Okay, what that does is if b5 or b4 decides to capture up here at b5, b6 can come down and recapture and maintain that road threat. Not only maintain that road threat, but also defend it against a4 coming up. Now, White has decided, okay, I've had enough of these games. I'm going to move my capstone over, block off your horizontal and vertical road threats, because you cannot do anything about this capstone, and move my capstone over. Now, I am interested to see how Black responds to this, because Black sort of has an ace in the hole when it comes to stopping this vertical threat, and that's this c5. While it's only a flat stone, it does give enough problems. And so that was attack threat, and so Black did see it and shut it off. Uh, Dropping this flat here was important because otherwise placing a flat at b3 would have been tack. Sometimes I forget to talk about those because they are they seem obvious to me, but yeah, I forget. Anyway, so dropping the wall here is important because of that. Now, c5, because it's here, it can stop this vertical threat, because if he uses this capstone to come up and cover it up to retain this, he opens this spot up for the black capstone to come in and basically cut off all of his momentum. So that's not going to be something he wants to do. Instead, White is playing down here on c1, potentially going for a crush on this wall to do something eventually, maybe. I'm not sure. Or he could just be building horizontally across on the bottom. Okay, the play here at g3 might seem a little odd because he doesn't have that threat. But what he's doing is he's basically pinning this capstone, so the capstone cannot smash either of these walls, because if it does, then that's a losing move. So now White's going, okay, I'm going to build across here horizontally. And yes, Azaric, one of the ways that he could sort of play against this c5 move, c5 to d5, would be to play here at e5. That would be a way to counteract that. But maybe he doesn't want to do that. And yes, Pluto, the the time management skills from Abyss always make me nervous as well. Uh, just just crazy, just absolutely crazy that he's down to 1 minute left. Fwib still has 12 minutes on the clock. Oh goodness. 50 seconds left on the clock for Abyss. Again, he does get 20 seconds every time he makes a move. So he can play this whole game just on the increment. Okay. Black playing at e5. That does not make attack threat, but it does keep White from playing at e5, and also starts building across this horizontal threat around the capstone of White. He knows he has to keep pressure on, and he needs to do it fairly quickly because he's so low on time. I mean, he's over 10 minutes behind Fwib, still in the game very much because it is Abyss and he can play very quick. but it is, man, it is nuts to see him play at such low time. When I get below 10 minutes, I start to freak out and panic and play way too quickly. Um, but he's very comfortable playing below 1 minute. Okay, so we do see B1 come out for white. Not too worried about this threat happening up here, which I find concerning because while there are a few ways to cut this off, it's definitely real. He can make attack threat on this turn if he wants to, just by capturing here. Sure, it would be easily blocked off, but it still exists and it's still a problem. White, likewise, can make a attack threat on the next turn by placing at F1, but now he can't because black decided to play there next. Now, this is important because this move was great because it also starts for a vertical threat. White decides, okay, I'm going to play in here, make some sort of play where you either have to give up this sort of horizontal down here by capturing over with this, or make some sort of capture down to make this vertical play, but either way, you're going to be cutting off something. If I were Abyss, I'd be cutting off this one to capture over. Maybe not on this turn, but maybe the next one when white plays maybe at G1. But if he does come over with E2 over to F2, okay, black playing around it instead. I would not be surprised to see G1 be played here. Fwib, yep. Fwib is sort of pressing Abyss at this point. He's not taking a lot of time, but he is making sure he puts a lot of pressure on Abyss to basically react to all of these threats. Good play from Abyss. Going over with G2 is the good play, because it maintains this horizontal down here and maintains the vertical up here. This now has 3 flats around it that can be recaptured at any point. Well, not with this one, because that would just lead to a loss. White coming in with the wall, which is going to be used offensively. This isn't a defensive wall because he's not protecting against any threat right now. What he wants to do is recapture this stack here on F2 so he can liberate this prisoner. Black deciding I'm going to go for this vertical threat, and he does. He makes the vertical threat. Now he's making a horizontal threat. He captured over here. Okay, so we see E6, capture over, capturing down with E6, with D6, sorry, to D5 would be a horizontal tack road. So he is making a threat here. And he did make a threat on the previous turn. Abyss still sub 1 minute on time. He is playing a very, very strong game, especially from such a low time constraint. White does capture up, cut off this horizontal tack threat, and makes his own tack threat of capturing F1 with F2. White then counteracts that, capturing over onto E1 with F1, making a vertical tack threat at the same time. Capturing down with D6 to D5 would create a vertical threat from E1 all the way across here to A7, which is a long road and for a lot of players would be very difficult to see and would be very easy to miss. But I don't think that's going to be the case here for Fwib. Fwib is, like I said, top 3 players in the world when it comes to tack, so he's not going to be missing this threat, most likely. I do wonder what he's going to be doing. I like Black's position better here. I have to admit, I do like Black's position better. White does capture down with his D7 flat, which cuts off that threat. Now, Black, if he wants to, can go ahead and go for that vertical threat again. Place here at E6, which could be covered up by the top 2 flats from the D6 stack, or some other way. He's got a lot of options here, including the use of this wall, moving over onto E3, which would be cutting off basically everything this capstone can connect to. So we do see a flat come out at E7, which is, again, a vertical threat. but does not get immediately captured over by this flat stack here on d6. White can do a lot here. White can do a lot, including place a wall here, place a flat here, move his wall over, move his flat over, move this flat over, move this flat over. He can do a lot of different things. Whether those moves are good or not, that's different. I think the best and most defensive move at this point would be to drop a wall here. Dropping a flat here, I feel like Abyss must have some sort of plan for that. And fwwwwwib is probably taking a look, okay, if I drop a flat here, what is his plan? What is going to be his response? Because I can't imagine that he would leave that open to just a flat placement cutting everything off. Now we do have to keep the flat count in mind. While they're pretty far away from it, like they have quite a few reserves, it is easy to snowball a little bit when it comes to flat count if you build enough of these. So white is taking the cautious route and dropping a wall here. Maybe he's counting on Abyss to run out of time at some point, because it is important to note that in this tournament, we are using a 3 komi. Now, komi is when you add artificially points to black's score, specifically 3 points in this case. So at the end, if it goes to a flat count instead of a road win, then that's 3 extra points that go towards black's road, or black's flat count. So if they have, for example, 10 flats to 12 flats, where 10 is black and 12 is white, black gets 3 extra, so that puts it at 13 to 12, and black would win, even though he has fewer on the board showing. While 10 and 12 is probably not going to be the numbers that we see here, as this is a sevens tournament match. It is important to note that. So we do see the stacks spread out because he doesn't want to get the black flat recaptured by this wall to have that wall get a lot of power. So he does do that, and then the black flat recaptured over here, and then the d6 moved up to recapture there. Now, placing a flat here is good because it is a tack threat yet again, and no matter... I see a possibility here. So what Abyss is trying to do is trying to get this stack to come down and cover this up so he can use the wall to cover that up. If he instead uses the wall here, Abyss can again place here at e7 to allow for attack threat to get this to come over and maybe trap it and do something like that. So using the wall, I think, is the best move, and that is what we see fwwwwwib do here. Now, again, I am not one of the top 3 players in the world, so when I say I think this is the best move, and then they do it, it's very validating to me, because then it means maybe it was the best move, right? While I think I'm top 10, I am definitely not top 3. Okay, so we do see the tack threat from black go vertically here, and then e7 cuts that off. I would not be surprised to see black just continue to place flats. It's safe for him to do so because he's got momentum. That is another tack threat. Placing here at f7 would be the tack threat. So for white, placing here at f7 would make sense to block that off. And then we do see potential for the very next move, placing here at f6 or placing here at g7. So what I would expect to see is f6, or g6, sorry, g6 placed, and then we might see a flat come here onto g7. Now, a common move that you see made is you see g6 then come up and capture onto the flat on g7, which would be a tack threat in 2 regards, because it could capture here, or it could throw over and capture onto e7. So I'm imagining this next move is going to be g6 to g7, as that's a common pattern, a common threat that we see from a lot of players in a lot of different games. one that fwib is likely not to fall for, but fwib does have this wall that he can move over onto e3 at any point to basically cut off this vertical threat. But once he does that, he will have to worry about this horizontal threat that may be popping up. Ooh, instead we see a wall come here. Now that's a smart play too. The reason for it is that the wall can capture this stack and then spread out across, which gives a very solid positive flat count and is attack threat at the same time. So even if this gets captured here with the wall, and white decides I'm going to throw this up onto e3 to cut it off, moving that across here is a great flat move, increases his flat differential by a ton, and maintains more threats. So I really like that move there from Abyss. That was a very strong move. A defensive move from fwib might be to use his own wall flatstone to capture his own stack. If he does this though, he's opening himself up to attack threat right around here, because filling in would be attack threat or capturing over would be another attack threat. That is important to note. Tater tots are getting cold. Why do you have to have such a good game at such an inopportune time for me? All right. Let's see. fwib's still taking his time. Abyss still down to 44 seconds. Like I said, he plays very well under pressure and under tight time constraints. fwib built himself a buffer in the early game so he can use that extra time to think more about these moves. And down here, this is basically a mid-game portion of the game. While it looks like the board is mostly filled, look how many flats are left over. They still have plenty of reserves, plenty of moves to play. There's a lot of thinking going on, a lot of strategy. I think we'll see some pretty strong play in the next few moves, and it could be very decisive. This is sort of the point of the game where it's converging and changing from mid-game to end-game. Just based on the board position. It's really hard to nail down mid-game and end-game when it comes to attack game. Just because, man, the game can progress and change so wildly from one moment to the next. It can be very swingy depending on the positions that are built up and the kind of moves that you set up. Especially with such strong pieces like a hard capstone, for example, especially a hard capstone in the very center square. Now, we're used to competitive play being on a 6x6 board, which doesn't have a center square like this. Oh, so we do see that wall stack move up and recapture, just like I was expecting. I feel like that is the strongest move in this position. I do like that play. No matter what, right here we do see this horizontal threat. Now we will see this stack move down in some way. In some way it will move down. And decides, oh, that was a good play. If he had left behind anything up here, it would have worked against him. But now we do see another attack threat form. And that's d7 capturing e7. So what I expect to happen, maybe this whole stack could come over, white, white wall, but it would open this up again for another black flat to make that same attack threat again. So it's hard to say. Black has a really strong position right here. Now this is just threatening the vertical threat, so he can use this wall to come over with e3, to come over onto e3 rather, and capturing onto e3 would cut off this vertical threat. And then black doesn't really have any options to go for that horizontal threat anymore because he's got these two walls that are blocking himself in, and he's got nothing really to move this. And this capstone really can't be touched. So we do see two capstones sort of blocking each other right now. Those are these two. And these two capstones are also blocking each other and both being very offensive at the same time. So these are dual purpose capstones while these are basically solely defensive. So we do see, interestingly enough, we do see the wall stack come over, but does not continue on over to G6. Instead, leaves itself there for a recapture opportunity. We do see this come across. This is a vertical threat. Gumming up here all the way up. So capturing over with C5 over to D5, or capturing down with D6 down to D5. All right. So let's see what we got here. Oh, hey, Alpaca's Creed. Welcome, Alpaca, to the stream. So we are seeing this stack threat from black. We're going to see white's response in a moment, and I wonder what we'll see from it. He doesn't have too many options at this point. I really think that he needs to employ this wall at F3. He needs to bring it over to E3. Abyss is showing how strong of a player he is. Oh, he did cut it off at the source. He used his flat over on D1 to capture at E1. That's pretty huge. I like that a lot better than my wall plan. The reason for it is if he recaptures this with his E2 flat, he no longer has this vertical threat prepped. And a wall here from white at D1 would offer capture possibilities at both E1 and D2, which would, in both cases, give him a captive back. So I think that fwwwwwibib dropping a wall right here, that is killer. And there we go. We see the wall drop down. All right, now fwwwwwibib's going to have to respond to this in some way. Now, he doesn't want this stack to be taken, but he knows that if this wall takes this stack, okay, so he does throw it across. That's what I was assuming he would do. Gives him a bigger flat advantage. Abyss really hoping he can draw this game out to flats. He's going to keep putting pressure on for threats so he can basically give himself more opportunities to make these flat moves. But he is, just looking at the board without counting, it looks like he's ahead. So let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 flats for black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 for white. But, again, like I said, this is a 3 komi match. So that is +3 for black, which makes it 19 for black to 16 for white. Okay, so we do see 2e4 come out. Moving this capstone. Huge. That's huge. He wants to capture this stack. He wants it, and he wants it bad, or he wants this stack. So basically what he's got is he's got an opportunity to capture a big stack of captives either way he throws this capstone. Aligning these walls was something that he was looking out for. And yes, Alpaca, Abyss is not looking for a draw. He's looking for a win on flats. And so he's threatening a lot of different positions here, threatening a lot of walls and big captures so that he can keep the pressure on to win by flats. So Abyss does have the advantage at this position, but he needs to keep pushing and keep his momentum, keep making threats in order to win on flats. Because if he doesn't keep making threats, he's going to open up opportunities for white to make their own threats. And then if white makes his own threats, then black is going to have to respond as opposed to making these aggressive moves himself. So we do see this stack from white move all the way over. The whole stack moves over onto g6. And the whole stack moving over is important because it doesn't leave behind any blacks for the black capstone to capture. But it does leave this stack open, which he's not going for. He instead goes for this capture up here. We may see a capture war with e6 coming down. Maybe he's trying to bait this wall into coming over, dropping a white here, and then coming over completely with the rest so that the black capstone can come up and capture the stack with the 3 black flat stones underneath. And yes, it is important to note that while black does have the advantage at this point in the game, it is not fair to count fwib out just yet. Simply because while fwib is amazing at playing at this low time, fwib could throw something out that was incredibly incredibly inspired, incredibly huge tactically, that could really, really change this game. And so fwib does go for moving this wall stack over, but he does it by leaving 1 black behind as opposed to leaving the full stack behind, which is really important to note because it doesn't allow this capstone to immediately capture over a big stack. Also, this stack is now in a position to come down and make a connection here with this center file, which isn't really a road thread at this point. Ooh, and then, of course, black comes over with this hard capstone now, able to capture over on this stack. So white's going to want to move this stack, but no matter what he does, he's going to have to leave behind some flats here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this white flat is basically as many as he can pick up, and then you have to leave at least 3 behind. So he's got to leave at least 3 behind, or he gives this enormous stack. No matter what, he's giving away at least 3 black flats to this capstone. And since this capstone is already on a black flat, if it doesn't have to crush the wall, it's going to be a hard capstone. This is going to be a very, very strong piece for black. This capstone coming over and capturing this stack is going to be huge for him. And white really doesn't have any option for making any threats of his own at this point to sort of get the attention away from this stack or to pin the stack or anything like that. No real options at this point. What he can do is preemptively use maybe a wall here to block this position off, but throwing more walls down on the board doesn't help his flat count and only helps Abyss at this point, because if it does go to flats, Abyss would be winning at this point. However, fwib might be counting on Abyss to run out of time because he does only have 30 seconds left, but Abyss has been under 1 minute for the past however long this has been going on, basically. For over 20 minutes, he's been sub 1 minute in time. So he's been playing on that 20-second increment this whole game. So instead we see e2 get played. This is an offensive move. I am intrigued by this. So this is a attack threat in 2 directions. Oh, just 1 direction, sorry. The wall came down. Okay, so this is no longer a attack threat, but it is still a really strong position for white. I am curious as to what white will do now that he's dropped this wall here and basically hemmed in the black stack. Black has made his move over to g6, which is his anchor point here for the wall, or for the road rather. So Alpaca, I see your suggestion of using this capstone to flatten C2. Really wouldn't do anything for him because it wouldn't be attack threat even. Well, it would be attack threat because this would come down, but it'd be easily stopped by these moves over here. Maybe G3 coming down, or honestly even B2 coming down. While it would make a threat, it's not a particularly strong one, but I do see the possibility of it. I do see the potential that that could be a strong move. We may even see fwwwwwib make it because he's kind of in desperation mode at this point. I would not be surprised to see if this capstone comes down to see D2 capture over onto E2, as that would start to make a connection here. Oh, so the capstone does flatten it. So we do see that black wins by a road. Capstone came up. We all missed it. Only black saw that move. fwwwwwib missed it. I missed it. The chat missed it. Everybody missed that move. I did not think this was attack threat. But as we see here, we see white come down with a capstone capture. Black throws the capstone up, smashes the wall, creates the road straight across. Excellent play from Abyss. Honestly, he was on under a minute for over 20 minutes, just playing super quick here at the end. Basically blitz tack. Not blitz tack, but very, very quick tack. Excellent game from these two top competitors, fwwwwwib and Abyss. Fantastic to watch. And my next opponent is, of course, Abyss. And, you know, maybe I should just resign. But I will do my best to schedule a match with him so that you guys can watch the next one. And I think one of the final, if not the final, match of the entire Chandrian tournament. So great game to both Abyss and fwwwwwib. You guys made some great threats, some great play, amazing positioning. Really, really well done. And with that, I will be ending the stream and ending this recording. So have a good night, have a good day, happy attacking, and be sure to check out all the cool stuff on the Discord and the subreddit and all that jazz. And links are, you know, they're somewhere. You can find them on Twitch or YouTube or something. So have a good one, folks.